Hi, my greetings to all the participants for a very good afternoon. And to begin with, I must thank all of you for having taken out to join me for this webinar. As we know, the budget has been presented on 1st of February. There were a lot of expectations from the budget for the sector, but let us see that where we are, what we ultimately got. If you look at it, predominantly, there are 4 announcements that came in the budget. The integration of public sector oil companies and a plan to set up strategic crude oil reserves, reduction of customs duty LNG, declaration of Chandigarh 8 districts as kerosene free. There were a large number of expectations. Vicky had also sent a lot of the issues to be addressed in the budget, but somehow these are the 4 issues that have been addressed. But if we look at it, this one statement in the 2-hour speech of the finance minister has created huge disruption in the, I would say that oil PSU fraternity. So the Big Bang policy announcement and I'll just read the statement because each and every word in this statement has a meaning. I have tried to analyze this statement and accordingly I have framed this presentation. FM said, we propose to create an integrated public sector oil major which will be able to match the performance of international and domestic private sector oil and gas companies. So it has created, I find, a lot of turmoil in the industry. All these companies, they have come to a freeze. You know, all the individual, strategies, the futuristic plans and all. So the uncertainty that creates coming out of and anxiety that comes out of this statement, everybody is trying to decipher that what does it mean? And what is the time frame, what are the modalities, what are the contours, what is the structure. So we'll deal with this issue. I feel what I intend doing my whole presentation, I have 10 slides and I intend finishing my presentation in not more than 15 to 20 minutes time, and during this time I will try to elaborate on the issues that have been flagged as much as I could do. I would like to have more time for the interactive session. Please feel free to post the queries, the questions that Akansha from ET, she will be taking note and accordingly she will be raising the questions to me and I'll be replying them online. So, so far as I'm concerned, I can speak anything and everything regarding the sector. So please feel free. After this statement on the budget day from the FM, next day there were a lot of coverage was there in the media, but predominantly I have identified 2 of these statements coming from the policymakers. One from the petroleum minister himself in the form of a Q&A with the Economic Times. These bullet points, if you read it, to my mind, the clarification is not very explicit. So that's what we will try to analyze. So he said, not one company, not wise to put all eggs in one basket. That means the message is clear. It is not merger of all the 11 or 13 companies into one company. He has said that there will be multiple companies. Then he also has said that boards of the companies to decide the modalities, the contours, the structure. So that is another the dilemma, suspense, that how the boards will decide. So it is the clarification yet to come. And the anxiety that got raised was the other thing when he said the process has already started. Then there's a Q&A in the business standard from Secretary DEA, where I'm just quoting one statement. where he said the structure of a new oil company had been almost finalized. I'm emphasizing had been almost finalized, and an announcement was expected soon. So does it mean that announcement came in the form of the finance minister budget speech? So that we will analyze how does it go about. I will now, this is where I have tried to work out what could be the possible options for the integration. So since the FM has used the term integration, I am using the term integration. This integration of the upstream, downstream, midstream, public sector PSUs can happen, to my mind, in three possible ways. Option one, merger of all oil sector PSU into one mega integrated oil major. So all the implications will come back on the next slide. Each option I will analyze. Second option, creation of 3 or 4 companies out of 11 or 13 oil PSUs instead of one. There will be 3 or more other companies depending on the synergies the companies have with each other. And option 3 is the one which I would be spending longer time, and that is my model I have thought about is creation of a holding company, holdco, with existing companies as subsidiaries. So I'll elaborate on these the options, and let us see what emerges. Evaluation option 1, creation of one mega integrated oil major. The implications have been listed here. The issues, concerns have been listed here. I would emphasize on the the statement that is coming down below this implication and issues, which is that this option got examined in 2005 through a committee headed by Dr. V. Krishnamurthy. That time the then oil minister, Mr. Mani Shankar Iyer, he gave a thought, synergy in energy. And this committee was named Synergy in Energy, the committee, since I was on the board of ONGC at that point of time as Director of Finance. So I was watching very closely what is happening. So I'm aware of this. And the committee had interacted with all the companies, upstream, downstream, stakeholders, the ministry, and ultimately the committee gave a recommendation against the merger. Let me not devote much time on this, what transpired at that point of time, but I'll be happy during the course of Q&A if somebody wants more clarification why the committee recommended that. In fact, if we look at it, the issues, concerns, the cultural and HR issues came up very strongly, and there was a vehement opposition from individual companies against the merger. Whether all existing companies lose identities or one company takes over all the companies, how the coordination will happen, how the HR policies, how the cultural issues. For example, Oil India is predominantly in the northeast Assam, so they have different culture. Downstream companies have inherited English culture. This EIL is a service provider company. We also have in the oil sector PSUs the Bommel Lorry company, which is a travel and tourism company. So how that will come about, there was a huge issue that was decided not to go for it. So I would reiterate, today also the scenario has not changed. Today also the implications, issues, concerns have not changed. Personally, I don't think this is the right kind of model to go about. Second option is regarding creation of 3 or 4 companies out of 13 oil PSUs. Here also, personally, I feel issues and concerns are identical to option 1, but of lesser dimensions, because they are integration of culture and HR. Instead of all 11 or 13 companies, it will be having in 3 or 4 segments through different these companies. This is where I would like to spend longer time, evaluation option 3. And this is my thought process, my model of how it should happen. Creation of a holdco on the pattern of Temasek of Singapore. The Temasek of Singapore the friends, it is a listed entity. This is the parent company is 100% owned by Ministry of Finance. It has multi-layered the structure. I do not have full details. Please, if there are Q&A on the structure of Temasek, I may not be able to answer much, but I know the parent company Temasek is owned 100% by Ministry of Finance Singapore. It has the other verticals and which are listed and which are not 100% owned by the government. So I feel the holdco also should be somewhat on this pattern, not to be 100% held by the government. But we know the strategic importance of oil sector, upstream, downstream, volatilities. We have seen the issues of huge under recoveries, oil prices going up, and consumer to be given comfort, kerosene, LPG to be subsidized. Now, earlier, when I came on the board in 2002, this oil, gas, they were all regulated. Everything was regulated. Now, most of the things have been deregulated except for gas price, this LPG and kerosene, and I may not recall some other, but to my mind, everything else has been deregulated. So because of the strategic importance, I strongly feel the government's ownership and control of existing PSUs must stay, which is very much desired in the Indian context. So what are the implications of this option? Combined market cap of this listed oil sector PSUs is about 710,000 crore. That means 710,000 crores in terms of that is about 108 billion US dollar. So that becomes a huge company. So even in this holdco concept, the consolidated balance sheet of holdco will comprise of balance sheet of all the companies. So that will have the strength of the 700,000 crore. The holdco will have that strength. So government will maintain control, strategic control on these oil sector companies, not directly but through holdco. So the companies have more flexibility, more autonomy in their day-to-day functioning and operations. Other thing is now this implementation of this government decision, which is a big bang reforms agenda. So under this option, there's a minimum disruption of existing corporate structure. All the existing companies retain their identities. The chairman of IOC and CMDs of other companies will get redesignated as managing directors. And I will give example because since I have been part of ONGC board for 9 years and more than half of it as the CEO, ONGC, OVL, MRPL structure is the case in point. ONGC is the parent company, holding company. OVL is 100% owned subsidiary of ONGC. MRPL is one where I believe ONGC currently holds about 71-72% of the equity. When MRPL was acquired in the year 2000, that was 2004, I believe. Excuse me, this was 2003 or 2004, or that point of time, MRPL was a private entity. So overnight, the company to become a subsidiary of a PSU, it had to, that change into the HR policies and everything working pattern, government policies had to be followed. That was a big challenge. But ONGC, we managed it in a beautifully, and there was not many cultural issues. We did not disturb the original cultural values of MRPL, that we did not interfere too much into the operations flexibility. The managing director was there, the then chairman at that time was Mr. Subir Raha. Then I became the chairman of MRPL. I was also chairman of OVL, besides chairman of ONGC. So we did not allow, a parent company did not allow any conflict of interest between the subsidiaries or any the issues. Let me give just one example here. One of the oil cargo from Sakhalin, where OVL's share of crude oil got sold to MRPL. That cargo came there. The issue came: what will be the pricing? Because it was not done on a calling a tender basis. What will the price to be decided? There were conflict between OVL and MRPL. So we, ONGC parent company, intervened and just said, follow this. This is the decision of the parent company that got followed. I feel same way Holdco can intervene if there's any disputes and between upstream, downstream, different entities. So the chairman of these companies will be non-executive chairman to be nominated by Holdco. For example, in ONGC, I was executive chairman of ONGC, but I was non-executive chairman of MRPL and non-executive chairman of OVL. So that is the structure that can operate on a larger scale in this entire gamut of this oil sector, PSUs, this integration, we call it, in this process. The sole function Holdco will be to oversee operations of these companies and also drive synergies in these companies, resolve all the disputes that these companies or conflicts of interest, whatever they may come about. Look at the benefits of creation of this Holdco. Optimization of resource sharing would definitely result in, tell you, in course of time this cost saving can further be optimized. It can be more, but this is the upfront saving. There will be huge disinvestment proceeds flowing to the government. See, currently government holds 51% to say about 75-80% equity in these listed companies. So all of that gets divested into the Holdco. Government may decide just to hold 51% in the Holdco and look at it. What are the avenues for the government? I am not able to put down a number. That has to be worked out. So because of the sensitivities, I am not putting down a number because they are listed companies. So, but let it be worked out what it can be. So, but in terms of the disinvestment for government, it will be unprecedented value for the government. Then market dynamics, volatility will be well addressed by this structure, because upstream, downstream, oil prices are high, upstream make profit, this oil prices are low, downstream makes profit, and then balancing happens through this integrated model. So when the consolidated balance sheet is prepared, there will not be much disruption year to year or time to time, depending upon the different dynamics of the industry. And this is the least disruptive model. Implementation is not a major issue. Existing companies continue to operate as they have been doing. Only thing is, currently, whatever strategies they decide, they have to take approval of the government. That time, that approval will be given by Holdco. So instead of direct intervention by the government, that will be Holdco. Holdco should have a professional board and a professional chairman, and that's it, that is needed. And the slowly companies, they will get more aligned to the culture of the parent company. Like MRPL today is absolutely aligned to the PSU culture. So OVL operating in different overseas countries, there's no conflict of cultural issues between OVL, ONGC, MRPL. So that is the model I somehow feel is the most practical option. Now, it's very important. The last, I'm reading first the last sentence which is coming in my slide. Since policy decision has already been taken, implementation needs to be fast-tracked. Today, the companies are at a freeze. They have stopped thinking in terms of the future strategy. They do not know what is there in store. Anxiety, uncertainty. Uncertainty is the last thing that a commercial enterprise should have. And look at the market cap of company, 700,000 crores. The country cannot play up with the fate of these companies. The decision must be fast-tracked. And how to be fast-tracked? I will strongly recommend not to again create a committee like V. Krishnamurthy committee, and they go about, in their own way, interviewing various stakeholders. And then I can share with all of you my personal experience. There's a lot of lobbying happens, lot of pressures come on the committee members. Engage a strategic advisor of global repute who will also bring that what are the international best practices, how does Temasek operate, how do the other companies elsewhere they operate, and then they can tell the government that which is the best option to suit Indian conditions. Well, these are the other announcements in the budget, so I wouldn't spend much time on that. All of them, all the remaining three, they are welcome. So there's two more that caverns, underground caverns, the strategic oil reserves, welcome thing. Reduction in custom duty, a positive step moving towards gas-based economy, and this Ujjwala scheme through this, so more districts getting kerosene free. That's a welcome step. As I mentioned, there were a lot of unmet budget expectations. I wish I had longer time. I feel on each of these issues we can have a webinar, but because of the sanctity of time, I will just touch upon these subjects. Today, the cess on crude oil at 20% is very high at the current prices. I think there's a little bit explanation on all these four coming in the next slide. Yeah, so this 20% is very high. Industry, the oil producers have been demanding 8%. So whether it is 8%, 10%, 12%, but 20% is indeed very, very high. So that is industry is crying for relief. It is not only the issue of giving relief to the existing players. Mind it, we are also going to launch this open acreage licensing policy. We want to invite international oil majors to come and bid here. So the regime here has to be investor friendly. 20% cess on crude oil is not investor friendly. So that is one. Then removal of service tax, royalty and cash calls. It's ridiculous, I would say, that royalty and cash calls, they are being subjected to companies, subjected to getting notices on service tax to be paid on these. I feel that it was expected in the budget. These kind of anxieties will be set to rest. It has not been done. I have been, as a chairman FICCI Hydrocarbon Committee, pitching very strongly for the last point, removal of service tax on exploration activity. We know service tax gets levied on all revenue generating activities. Exploration per se is not a revenue generating activity. If we want large investments to come in exploration in this country, we have to give some radical kind of incentives, radical reform should be done to incentivize the activity, and this removal of service tax or exploration is something I feel is very much desired, but has not been addressed. The industry, there are big issues, that petroleum products, natural gas, not in GST. For these companies, the input cost is going to be under GST, but the products are not going to be under GST. How the SENVET issues will be addressed, how the regulatory issues will be addressed. There are the big issues. The last bullet point here is not part of the budget expectation, but from the industry point of view, as chairman FICCI Hydrocarbon Committee, I feel very strongly that in case we want India to become a gas-based economy, we need to give import parity price to domestic producer of gas, as is being given in case of crude oil. Today, the gas constitutes only 6.5% of energy basket, as against global average of 24%. There are compulsions of COP. There are compulsions in terms of the overall heat equivalence basis. Gas is definitely a cheaper option. So that is another thing. But let us see, maybe we need a separate discussions on that. Well, I am here, so I have tried to hurry up given a time, I could have spent 1 hour on this presentation, but I respect the value of everybody's time. So I end here my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any question on any of the issues covered in this presentation, and anything else also. I'll be happy to respond. Thank you very much.
So we begin our question and answer session. Our first question is from Tarun. Why committee went against the merger in 2005?
Yes. Now say again, Tarun. What is the question, Tarun?
The question is,
yeah.
Why committee went against the merger in 2005?
I was expecting this question. You know, this committee had to take a consent of all stakeholders, ministry, the interaction with individual companies. All the individual companies, upstream, downstream, they vehemently opposed such a merger. They were strongly against it. They say there are cultural issues, there are HR issues. That sort of merger will create a havoc. I recall that is sort of the language used, and it will disturb such a very sensitive sector of the economy, petroleum sector. There's going to be huge disruptions, and based on the inputs this committee got from the stakeholders, especially all the oil companies, upstream as well as downstream, against the merger. So the committee gave a recommendation against the merger.
A second question from Praveen. He is asking, decentralization is said to be good for managing big entities. According to you, why the government has chosen to go for centralization of oil PSUs?
Well, Praveen, it is, I would, let me clarify, it is not a centralization. You know, as it is, the government today plays that role of creating synergies between these companies. And these companies have their individual identities. Look at the statement of the finance minister. Please look at it. It has got a lot of meaning. The statement, we propose to create an integrated public sector oil major which will be able to match the performance of international and domestic private sector companies, so which will be able to compete at par with the best of the international majors. So that sort of integration creates a lot of value. It addresses a lot of volatilities. So the intent, I would say, is not at all the bad. It is not a centralized authority. The authority, rather, I would like to compliment the government. Instead of government doing the backseat driving, government wants to have these entities to have their own decision, and government does the control through the holdco. Holdco, only the company, a professional board, they drive the synergies at, about the alignment of the cultural and HR issues in these companies. So I feel that is the right step. It's not a retrograde step.
Next question is from Shibi. What performance improvements? Yes, the question is, what performance improvements are envisaged by this exercise? What are the current lack of synergy that are to be overcome?
Look, I will give an example. Today, all the downstream companies want to go upstream. Look at Indian Oil, BPCL, GAIL, they compete with OVL in overseas whenever the bidding happens. Upstream companies want to go downstream. So this is an unhealthy competition today happening within the oil sector PSUs. From the owner's perspective, from the government's perspective, it is not a desirable thing. It is very important to have the synergies between these companies, so they don't have to compete with each other. They have to work hand in hand with each other, and that comes through the integration. But if it is not a merger, if it is through the holdco concept, I feel that is the ideal structure for to get the best value coming out of these companies. Their performance instead of competition, there will be synergies. I have said there will be cost saving, there will be sharing of resources, optimization of the resource sharing, and today that how much should be under recoveries, how much upstream will be here, how much downstream will be here, all those, these conflicts will not be there. Conflicts get addressed. So I feel there's nothing wrong. This is a good model.
Next question is from V. Ravindranath.
Yeah.
Can you say a few words about strategic control by government, which was mentioned by you? The focus today for oil costs should be on domestic exploration and overseas acquisition. What is the strategy envisaged?
Yeah, you see, as I mentioned somewhere in my talk, that this oil sector has a very much sensitive, importance for the economy. Look at when the crude oil prices were going $120 and above. The government, they were under recoveries to the extent of 1,55,000 crores. The government had to protect the consumer. The government had to protect the consumption. But how that gets absorbed? Something was absorbed by the refinery companies, and the government themselves from the exchequer, they bond some part of it, and the upstream companies own GCI. Recall at one of the year 55,000 crores worth the under recoveries were passed on to ONGC. So uh, that sort of thing, the government, I don't think this will be right to privatize the companies and leave it to the vagaries of the market, so that strategic control from the government for this sector is highly desirable. I can say out of my 3 decades of experience in this sector that government must not privatize these companies.
Next question from Navtej. He asked, will there be any operational cost benefit in the merger model proposed by you?
Yes, merger model, to my mind, let me be very candid, merger model will have higher cost savings as against this holdco concept. But looking to the negativities which are part of that merger model and implementation issues, that is strongly not recommended. I have devoted a lot of time on that. Through this model also, this resource sharing can be optimized. I can tell you this OVL, MRPL operating from ONGC premises, they don't get charged market rent. When MRPL was to be, when it was acquired, it was a potentially sick company. Had it been delayed by 2 days, it would have been declared a sick company. So that point of time, how ONGC gave interest-free loan to MRPL. ONGC also gave interest-free loan for a pretty long time to OVL also, because OVL's balance sheet had to be strengthened. No dividend was taken from OVL. So thing is, that even in this model, that sort of strategies, that sort of synergies of resource optimization, resource sharing can happen. It is only depends how the whole co operates. I can share my own experiences as the chairman of ONGC for more than 4.5 years, that we had not one, many times, quite a few conflicting issues coming from MRPL, OVL, but I can say with a lot of comfort that we were able to resolve all of them internally. We did not allow any of the issues to go to the media or to government, and we were able to in-house able to decide. That is a way that will be decided by the whole co also. Cost savings definitely, so resource sharing will be there, but may not be to the extent in case of merger. But why do comparison with something which we feel is not practical, which is not feasible? And even the minister, has said that it will not be one company merger. He has said could be 2 or 3 companies. So my model is that this whole model.
This question is asked by Suresh. Organizational culture includes the strategic objectives of companies, which are different for upstream, midstream, and downstream. What is your opinion?
Yes, absolutely right. But today, look at it. Today, the companies are stepping on each other's shoes. The downstream companies want to compete with OVL. The upstream companies want to go into the petrochemicals. They want to compete with the downstream companies. It is not a good thing from the owner's perspective. So these strategic objectives will get best addressed, best synergized when they are all under one umbrella, one of the ownership of the whole co, and with not much interference from the government. They have the operational autonomy. The whole co has to drive the synergies and any conflict issues between these companies. So I feel that is the best way. The benefits are huge. So instead of the companies allowing them to operate as it is very much desirable to eliminate competition within these companies, which is actually hurting. This unhealthy competition is hurting the owner, ultimately the government of India.
Next question from Umesh. Could we agree that there will be a greater push to the use and promotion of LNG, and the floating LNG terminals would get a preference in such a scenario?
Promotion to LNG. What was the first word you used, Kansha? Promotion of?
I repeat the question.
Yeah.
Could we agree that there will be a greater push to the use and promotion of LNG?
Yes, yes,
And the
yes.
floating LNG terminals would get a preference in such a scenario?
Yes, yes. Today also, it's very good question. I should compliment. Today, all these companies are going about setting up LNG terminals, gas-based economy, and it is an embarrassment for us that the imported gas now constitutes almost 50% of the total gas consumption in the country. Domestic consumption is almost stagnant. Imported LNG is increasing, and that's why I said somewhere, the not part of this Q&A, that the domestic producer need to be given import parity price if we want to reduce import dependence. But unfortunately, that is a harsh reality. The LNG imports have been constantly increasing. If you want the gas-based economy, there's a dire need to have more and more gas if domestic production is not coming up due to policy fault of the government itself. There has to be, the LNG has to be imported more and more, and that's why there are about 17, 18 LNG terminals. They are implemented, under implementation, or planned to be implemented on East Coast, West Coast. So the gas-based economy, it is a dire need. It has to be implemented. So that should be gone ahead with.
Next question from Malvia. Cultures are very deep rooted, and it takes decades to align the individuals to a common platform. So,
Yeah.
what is your immediate strategy to onboard employees to a common platform so as to harness the productivity?
Well, I'm not denying that it's a challenge. Cultural integration is a challenge. But, my own experience in the industry says that the challenges have been successfully met in the past. Now, no better example than MRPL. I mentioned a private sector entity became part of ONGC subsidiary. There is huge cultural issues. So ONGC, I was on the board. As I mentioned, we adopted a very magnanimous approach to respect the then existing culture of MRPL, and slowly the alignment happened. Today there are no differences in the culture, but still, operational needs are different. Look at OVL. OVL employees get posted overseas. They work in a altogether different kind of the work environment. MRPL is a, that standalone refinery at Mangalore. The ONGC in upstream different activities, but there are no conflicts so far as in terms of the cultural issues of these companies are concerned. It is a challenge. It has been addressed successfully in the past, and I'm quite positive this will get addressed in future as well. Looking to the benefits of this whole I would strongly recommend the government should go ahead. They should not drag their feet on this announcement made. So I don't think it is going to be an impossible kind of thing.
Next question from Chetan.
Yeah.
For a layman, how do subsidies and levy of numerous taxes go hand in hand? How are oil PSUs affected by them?
Well, Chetan, it's a very, very complex answer. It does not, become part of the subject matter which we are discussing. This the taxes and the subsidies. I will try to be brief, but if need be, I can be more elaborate. But I have to respect the time also. Other questions. The government looking to our socialistic pattern of society, the objective of the government to to give support to the section of the people who are below poverty line or who are not so well off. So this kerosene, LPG getting subsidized. So I don't think that's a bad decision. Any in a democracy, the government which has care for the masses, they should do it. And that I use a term, I have used it in the past also, that poverty has to be shared. How the poverty has to be shared? Giving support to those people, the burden has to be shared by the well-off people. And what better example than this budget itself? The finance minister, first he said, I want to give relief to the people who are at lower income brackets, so the tax rate getting reduced from 10% to 5% for incomes up to 10 lakhs. So that was a welcome clap, but he also said this money has to come from somewhere. So 10% surcharge got levied on the earnings higher than 50 lakhs. 1 crore plus was already there, but that money has to come from somewhere. So that is, but it has been balanced. It has to be equitably balanced. So that is what the government has been trying to do in a best possible manner. And the taxes and duties also, please mind it, Chetan, for the center as well as state governments. The largest revenue comes from the petroleum products. No way they can, let it go. When the prices constantly came down, government 9 times they increased the excise duty to increase government revenues, and those revenues which have been increased have been used for various welfare schemes. So that is where it's not the government has kept it and invested in gold or anything else. So that is the way the balancing has to be done by the government. There's nothing wrong. Only thing is the pain should be minimal. Those who pay. So I feel that is the way it is. Maybe we can spend longer time somewhere at some other forum on this subject.
Next question from Kumar Mukul. Is there any possibility of such kind of integration in power sector in future?
Power sector, if you look at it, there's no unhealthy competition amongst the public sector units in the power sector. Power sector, power grid, they are into the transmission. NTPC, they are into the thermal, the power. And NHPC, hydel, the power. So there's no that sort of competition which needs to be addressed. I feel there's no need in this power sector for these kind of integration.
Next question from Yashwant. LNG for transportation. Can you please share your views and NOC's plans around it?
Oh, again, Yashwant, this is an issue that, of course, is not part of the discussions we are having. But slowly and slowly, LNG is going to, get more and more part of the transportation fuel. It is a cleaner fuel. It is more convenient, but somehow the government has to take a call. They have to set up a lot many the retail outlets, but today the availability of LNG itself is an issue. That's why there's a lot of LNG terminals coming up. So once the availability is there, so it will be highly desirable that our transport sector moves to this LNG transport system. The pollution is creating havoc in metropolitan cities. So very much desirable. So should be it's strongly recommended.
Next question from Ravindranath. The overseas acquisition will see elimination of intra-competition. Apart from this, what will be the difference in the approach towards overseas acquisition?
So again, very good question coming from Mr. Ravindranath. I know he has been part of OVL itself. Thing is when it is OVL was created for a very strategic reason or for the energy security point of view. Unfortunately, India is not endowed with a very high, size of hydrocarbon reserves. We are 17% of world population. Our known hydrocarbon reserves today are only 0.5%. I don't see any possibility of India getting that sort of energy independence in times to come. So strategically, it is important to go overseas to acquire the assets. But when different companies from the same public sector, they start competing with each other, we are heating up the price. So that is not desirable. So that unhealthy competition has to be eliminated. And that can come through this sort of integration process only to remove unhealthy competition. Let a call be taken beforehand who is going to bid for it, and let the two government entities not bid against each other for these acquiring of this oil equity overseas.
As we are running short of time, we are taking our last question. This question is from Yukti. Can you put light on success of ONGC, OVL, MRPL collaboration?
Some light on this collaboration. I'll be happy to talk on this because I can talk for hours on this subject. This ONGC, OVL, MRPL collaboration is a very kind of model that I'm pitching for this integration of all the companies as well. I was chairman of OVL, I was non-executive chairman of OVL, non-executive chairman of MRPL, but executive chairman and managing director of ONGC. So the collaboration was ensured by a common ownership. At the end of the day, OVL, MRPL knew that their ownership lies with ONGC. They had to conform to the the directives or wishes of the owner. Only thing is, it's very important. Like we never bullied, ONGC never bullied OVL or MRPL. Only gave them resource support. OVL today also, when they go for raising finances overseas, that raise bonds and in foreign markets, they leverage ONGC's balance sheet. MRPL immediately after acquisition became an investment grade. Their credit rating shot up because we gave a very specific commitment to the lenders that ONGC will stand by any potential default or weakness in the financial system of MRPL. So that synergy has given benefits. MRPL, when they started making profits, so who's the beneficiary? Is the parent company, ONGC beneficiary. OVLS started making profits, beneficiary is the parent company. But in times of need, when their balance sheets were weak, ONGC has been very, very liberal in giving that support and giving interest-free advance to OVL. Even CAG they had questioned, but the Companies Act does not say there is a conflict, so they had to accept to our explanations that there is no conflict in this. So it's we want to support the subsidiary companies. So that is the way it was done. And when this sort of integration happens, the same role has to be played by the holdco also. I feel that has to be the spirit. If that is a philosophy, I can say that this model which I am proposing is going to be hugely successful. And look at the disinvestment proceeds the government will get, the cost savings that will come, the synergies will come. So there's a lot of benefit. So I am all in support of that government decision to integrate these companies, to create a mega company to compete at par with best of the global integrated oil majors. Globally, most of these oil majors, almost all, they are integrated players. They are into upstream, downstream. They have a number of verticals, not 8, 10, 15. They have a number of verticals, trading also, petrochemicals, refinery, exploration, production, CPM, whole gamut of activities. So this holdco will also ensure that this oil sector PSUs, they become active players in the whole gamut of this oil and gas business without creating a conflict, and look for the synergies, look for optimizing of the resources, and ultimate benefit to the nation, benefit to the economy. I am all for it. I'll repeat before we edit, time is the essence. Once the decision has been taken, there's a lot of disruption, lot of turmoil in the companies, lot of uncertainties, anxieties, they must be addressed. Just one statement given by FM is not good enough. The clarification must come from the government very soon, that what is the implementation model, what are going to be contours, what is going to be the structure, what is the time frame. All of this has to be, the clarifications must come in a shortest possible time. I feel that is how we will see the success of this announcement that has been made by the government.